Welcome everyone to Fourth and Out, the NFL show which swears it isn't a podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and a few other websites which aren't quite as cool. I am your host, Chris Murray, joined as ever by my beautiful other half. He's the Gronk to my Brady. It's Scott Hasty. Hi, Scott.
The future is now.
Beautiful, beautiful. Welcome to the show. I notice you're not wearing your customary Baltimore Ravens jersey, and that is for a very important reason. Scott, we said when we started we would only do these shows if there was something important to talk about.
Yes.
The NFL podcasts are shit. And what an important weekend we've got ahead of us. The NFL draft is this weekend, April 29th to the 1st of May, in various locations across Cleveland, Ohio, including First Energy Stadium, boo, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, yay. I've said to Scott many times, I know nothing about college football, nothing at all. I just know that at some point 7 guys will hopefully turn up for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So for this episode, and this episode only, our couple becomes a threesome. Joining us for the very first time is our very own college football expert. It's Nels, Burleson, Hylton. Welcome, Nels.
What up, what up? I'm sorry, that definitely peaked way too loud. I'm very sorry, but good to be here, boys.
Nels, thanks for joining us. You know so much more about college football than me. One of the first messages you ever sent me, we had never met in real life, and one of the first messages you ever sent me was like, so what do you think of the draft? And I was like, have to be cool. Don't know him yet. And I was just like, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know anything about it, but we have to cover it. It's a huge event in the NFL calendar. This is the point where teams get the opportunity to turn their, next 10 years of their franchise around. I've said before that one of the Steelers draft picks in 2004, Ben Roethlisberger, 17 years ago now, is the entire reason that I watch NFL. If the Steelers hadn't drafted him, I might not even be interested in this sport. So it's such a huge moment. But Nels, this weekend, you must be very, very excited.
I mean, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. You really get the opportunity as a franchise to either turn your franchise around or, if you don't pick right, you could be at the bottom of the barrel again next year. So, yeah, it's one of the most exciting parts of the National Football League calendar. You get to see all the best players in college, see how they fare in the NFL. And this is where we begin to see, some future stars really take center stage. And of course, there are always some diamonds in the rough that you find in the deeper rounds of the draft, which is always amazing to see.
Absolutely. So it's the first draft of the sort of post-coronavirus era. Hopefully they will be having some fans in it. A couple of these events, thank God they're in a massive stadium. Hopefully they reduce the capacity, unlike UFC last night. And it's an exciting time. This for me, I know there's a lot of other things that happen around this time, but this is the first step towards the new season. Everyone knows that the off season between the Super Bowl finishing and that first game you have in September feels like forever. And this is our first step towards getting more games and a new season in. So Scott, over to you. You've picked out quite a sweet little system on how we're going to do this today. Take the listeners through it.
Yeah, so myself and Nels have been putting the hours in. We've been doing all of our Rocky training montages, but instead of working out, we've been working through mock drafts. We've been working through collecting information. And what we're going to do on Fourth and Out is effectively bring you Fourth and Out's mock draft before the proper draft comes around next week. So what we're going to do is Nelson and I are going to take it in turns to go with alternative picks. We flipped a coin before the match, and I have come out with my first pick. So I'll be picking the odd numbers, and Nelson will be picking the even numbers. And the way that we're going to do this is by using a mock draft client, which Chris is going to get up on the screen about now.
2021 NFL Mock Draft Simulator. I am not going to share my sound. Can you guys see my screen? Do we have a draft simulator in the background?
Wonderful.
We're all ready to start. So as soon as Chris hits the word start draft, it'll be over to myself and Nels to kind of pick the first round of what we think is going to go down at the NFL draft.
So shout out to PFF for basically making our lives so much easier with this, especially mine who knows nothing about the draft. You guys are going to pick the picks as, mock live as it is in front of me. Yes, Scott's going to go first. So hopefully if I hit start draft, is that right, Scott?
Yep.
Start draft. So officially, thankfully it's not timed because we probably take a little bit longer than they will. Thankfully, it's not timed, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock. So, Scott, are you going to pick the next Peyton Manning, or are you going to pick the next Ryan Leaf?
Okay. The Jacksonville Jaguars are in an interesting position. I think they've basically hit a full reset. They've decided to bring in a new coach in Urban Meyer, who is one of the greatest college football coaches of all time. They have made it very, very, very clear that they're going to be taking a quarterback at pick 1. And there is nothing in this world, no amount of riches that could pry them out of that first round pick. They are absolutely taking the quarterback of the future here. And I think this pick has been locked in for months. And the reason it's been locked in for months is because Clemson's Trevor Lawrence has come through college football with a pristine college football record. The guy won a national championship age 19. The guy is just, he has a perfect score, A+ for all his classes. He will be coming in to the NFL with the same kind of recommendations that Andrew Luck got coming into the NFL. That's exactly who his kind of like NFL comparison is Andrew Luck. And actually, if I'm right in saying, Nels, he scored higher than Andrew Luck and therefore is the highest scoring quarterback of all time with his kind of college score. Is that right?
Yeah, he's the highest rated college quarterback of all time. He beat Andrew Luck to that record.
So for me, we could sit here all day and talk about the fact that he is a complete chameleon with every single scheme. He can work every single scheme. You can throw him into whatever scheme you want, it will work. He's just going to be a star in this league. So get used to the name. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the first year with Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence both in. But yes, first pick of the NFL draft this year will be Trevor Lawrence, quarterback Clemson, if you can lock that in.
So I'm going to lock this in to the Jacksonville Jaguars with the first overall pick. Nels, do you think there's any doubt in anyone's mind that Trevor Lawrence is going to the Jags?
No, I think this guy is the future of the league. He's built like a skinny defensive end that can play quarterback. He's 6'6", 220 pounds. He's got the arm talent to back it up. And if he needs to use his legs, he can. So I don't think there's been a better quarterback prospect over the last few years. And I definitely think he's going to be, the heir apparent to the GOAT throne in the NFL.
I think this is a good pick because I feel like, there's the comparisons to Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck is always the first person that comes to mind as NFL-ready starting quarterback. A lot of the starting quarterbacks, a lot of the quarterbacks that have been drafted recently to come in as starters have never really panned out quite that way. Baker Mayfield, he took a while to get going. You look at guys like your man who's just left the Tennessee Titans,
Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, who was there for ages. A lot of these early picks aren't quite panning out as perfectly. A lot of them get there eventually, but it's not been sort of Andrew Luck style go in straight away, taking his team to the playoffs. So, there's other holes that need to be sorted at the Jacksonville Jaguars, but this could easily be the first step. So we're on to the nice even numbers. Nels, what do you think is going to happen with the New York Jets at number 2?
So pick 2 is an interesting pick, and that's because it's thrown up quite a few curveballs in recent weeks. When the college football season ended before the start of the NFL season, we could have said comfortably that Justin Fields was going to be the second quarterback taken off the board. He reached the national championship final. Unfortunately, Ohio State came up short. But if you go way back to the high school days, Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence were on the same Elite 11 camp, and Justin Fields won Elite 11 MVP. So he actually beat Trevor Lawrence to an accolade. So in recent weeks, The names that have been thrown around here include, of course, Justin Fields from Ohio State, Mac Jones from Alabama, but I think the consensus second pick has to be Zach Wilson from BYU. He's 6'3", 210 pounds junior from BYU. He is incredible at throwing the football. He showed that at his pro day. It's worth noting as well that obviously this year there was no NFL combine, so there was a lot more focus put on teams on college football's pro days instead. And yeah, he just displayed his incredible arm talent. He displayed his incredible ability to run outside the pocket under pressure. But one of the biggest question marks about Zach Wilson coming into this NFL season next year is we don't know what he's like under pressure. We don't know what he's like when his pocket really collapses against a big team. He hasn't really faced the same level of competition in college that Trevor Lawrence has faced, or even Justin Fields has faced. And we know what Justin Fields is like under adversity. So I definitely think he's got the talent. I think he's got the leadership skills. He's got all the qualities that you need in a great quarterback. But there are some questions. But I do think at number 2, the Jets are going to go with Zach Wilson.
Excellent. Well, let's lock in Zach Wilson to the New York Jets at number 2. But Scott, here's the important question. Is this the perfect fit for the New York Jets? And I don't mean in a team sense. We know that, I would say, in terms of the media, the New York teams, particularly the Jets and the Giants, are the most under pressure teams to get things right as quickly as possible. Their fans and their media just never settle for things, work in progress, anything like that. They want big and they want now. Is this the right fit?
It's an interesting one. I wasn't even sure that Saleh, who's come over from the 49ers, is the right fit to be the head coach there. I think with the Jets, there is a hell of an uphill battle to have in terms of taking that team and making it better, I still think there's a good chance that Sam Darnold might turn out to be a good quarterback. We might just have had the worst franchise in recent memory with the Jets. So a change of culture is going to be tricky. And I think at this point, it's really, really tricky to call whether Zach Wilson or indeed Saleh is going to work. But what I will say is that Zach Wilson is a guy who's played similar schemes that Shanahan has at the 49ers. And who worked under Shanahan there? Saleh. So this could be a good fit. It feels like a good fit with them partnering together, but whether them as a partnership works on the grander scheme of things, I'm not quite sold just yet.
So, at number 3, unexpectedly, we have the San Francisco 49ers. And guys, if you will allow me, it took us a while to get here. So, originally this was the pick of the Houston Texans, I do believe. Now, Houston traded the pick to Miami before the draft. Houston traded their first and second 2020 first rounder, as well as offensive tackle Julian Davenport and defensive back Johnson Bademosi to Miami in exchange for Kenny Stills, Laramie Tunsil, a 6th rounder, and a 2020 4th round selection. However, it doesn't end there because Miami then traded their selection to San Francisco, which is how we ended up here. They traded their 3rd overall pick to San Fran in exchange for their 1st and 3rd round selections, 12th overall and 102nd overall, plus a 2022 first rounder and a 2023 first rounder. Oh my god, it's the most dumbass trade I've ever seen in my whole life. But that is not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about who San Fran are taking at number 3. So over to you, Scott. Will we see our 3rd quarterback come off the board in a row?
So, when we recorded a previous episode, of Fourth and Out, I talked to you about the idea of the merry-go-round, the quarterback merry-go-round, and I think I've been pretty spot on with that happening. We've seen a lot of teams get new quarterbacks, and one of the teams that I had in the kind of maybe pile a couple of months ago was San Francisco. And I know that, Chris, you're a fan. I almost said big fan, but I wouldn't take it that far. You're a fan of Jimmy Garoppolo. You think he's good, right?
100%.
I'm not.
He's an absolute babe. I'd have his babies.
He's a very good-looking man, to be fair. Even Nels must agree with that. But the thing is, I think the 49ers don't believe in him. And I think that is absolutely clear that they've traded so much to jump up to number 3. Now, this number 3 pick, a lot of people are kind of saying this is where the draft begins, really, because Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson are they're locked in. They're going to happen. There's no mock draft in the world that doesn't have them going 1 and 2. This is where things get really interesting. I think we can narrow it down to say for certain that the 49ers are absolutely going to take a quarterback here. They've traded up for a quarterback. There's no other way about it. There's no argument that works. It's just nothing else can happen there. They've traded up for a quarterback. There are 5, Chris, quarterbacks that are worthy of being taken in the first round. And then, to be honest, there's a couple of desperate teams that might also really take a risk on players outside of those 5. But the 5 are Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, who we've already talked about. You've got Justin Fields, quarterback from Ohio State, who has had an incredible year last year. You've also got Trey Lance, who's the quarterback at North Dakota State, who has an incredible upside, and a lot of people are really excited about him. And then finally, you've got Alabama quarterback Mac Jones, who last year had one of the best quarterback performances of recent years as he took Alabama to being the best team in college football. Okay, so the players that we have left here are Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and Mac Jones. Now, what's really interesting is that all 3 of those players are very, very different. Justin Fields, I totally agree with Nels. He has the most upside out of all of the quarterbacks in this draft. Maybe apart from Trevor Lawrence, of course. But Justin Fields, in truth, should have been going second. It just so happens that the Jets are settled on Wilson. So you would think that I would be picking Justin Fields here. But I'm not picking Justin Fields here. Interestingly, the word on the street and what everybody is talking about is actually seemingly comes down to Trey Lance and Mac Jones. And it totally depends on what the 49ers are looking for. If the 49ers are looking to start Jimmy Garoppolo next year, sit somebody and do a Mahomes on them, then Trey Lance is a good pick because Trey Lance cannot start week 1. He's been playing alongside a bunch of jobbers out at North Dakota State. It's like he doesn't play in the best division of college football. But what he has done for them is pretty impressive. I wouldn't start on week 1. The interesting thing about Mac Jones is he's not the flashiest quarterback, and by no means he's not the best. He's like not the best. He's probably the worst out of the 5 in terms of like sheer ability. However, playing at quarterback for Alabama gives you a certain readiness for NFL. They are the most ready NFL team out of all the teams in college football. You could probably bin off like the Houston Texans, because we all hate the Houston Texans because they're run absolutely terribly, and put Alabama college football team into the NFL and they would do better than the Houston Texans. And I just think what the 49ers are looking for here is somebody who is NFL ready, who is a similar-ish build to Jimmy Garoppolo, but maybe just will be a bit better. So, what would have seemed like an absolutely mental pick a month ago seems to be what is trending towards happening, which is that the San Francisco 49ers are going to go with Mac Jones, quarterback from Alabama at number 3, which is what I will pick.
Good. Right. We'll lock in Mac Jones to the 49ers. I think that'd be quite unexpected. I think that, even me as like a draft noob, I know that Alabama have been sort of reigning supreme at the top of the college football world for a good few years. But Nels, you sort of indicated it with your thumb there. I'm guessing you're not on the Jimmy Garoppolo hype train. How do you see this panning out? I'm guessing you don't see Mac Jones going there. Do you see Jimmy starting? Is he done in San Fran? What's happening there?
Well, I'm not the biggest fan of Jimmy Garoppolo, but I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I just think he doesn't fit San Francisco's scheme, and I think he struggled there. He's shown his talent as a quarterback when he filled in for Tom Brady at New England, in that short stint where Tom Brady was suspended for deflating balls. I do think, however, that San Francisco are going to move on from him. I personally, I think the pick is going to be Justin Fields, but I can see why Scott's gone with Mac Jones here, and I respect it. I also think that if they do pick Mac Jones, he won't be an instant starter. He'll be like a development prospect that they can maybe play 6 games in or 12 games into the year.
Excellent. Well, let's hope that this pick pans out the way San Fran need it, because there's a lot of picks that have been moved to get to this spot, so hopefully they'll make the right choice. But we move on now to pick number 4. Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan is pretty settled in his job as quarterback there. So will we finally get another position off the board for the Falcons, Nels?
So the Falcons have had a very hard 2020. Obviously, they let go of head coach Dan Quinn and brought in Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans, to take over as head coach. And they could essentially pick the heir apparent to Matt Ryan here for a complete reset. Now, Justin Fields is an option here, absolutely. So is Trey Lance. 3 quarterbacks have gone off the board. The Falcons might be looking at this and thinking, oh, we really have to pick our quarterback now if we want to have any chance of rebuilding our franchise this year. But I don't think the Falcons are going to go for a quarterback this year. I think they're going to put off a complete rebuild for next year. They've already got, decent enough weapons in Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley and Todd Gurley. They might just look for a little bit of extra protection or a little bit of an athlete that can, free them up from, defensive backs in the league. So the perfect fit for that is the best athlete in the draft right now. And he plays for the Florida Gators, and his name is Kyle Pitts. He's 6'6", 240 pounds. He moves like a freight train. I remember watching a game was it last year? Yes, it was last year. Watching Ed Orgeron and Joe Burrow's LSU take on the Florida Gators, and in the middle of the game, they pulled Coach Ed Orgeron over for an interview, and they asked him, Ed, what do you have to do to beat this Florida Gators team? Because Florida were giving LSU a really good game, and he said, we got to stop Kyle Pitts. That was their game plan, just put as many people as they could on him and stop Kyle Pitts, because he was just running riot on LSU. And I think it's going to be the same within the league once he gets there. He's going to have the opportunity to block for Matt Ryan. So, if he's blocking, that frees up Matt Ryan, gives him a bit more protection, but also he's a viable receiving threat, which, leaves someone like Julio Jones in single coverage instead of maybe double coverage, or lets Todd Gurley get the screen pass off safely, So I think at number 4, my pick here, it's a little bit of a curveball, but it's going to be Kyle Pitts.
Well, let's lock in Kyle Pitts from Florida to the Atlanta Falcons. I don't think it's that wild a pick. He's ranked 5th overall of PFF's available players. I love the pick. I feel like the tight end is the single most underrated position in terms of skill set. Wide receivers, running backs are all flashy, but tight end is one of the most difficult positions to play. You have so many teams that have great blocking tight ends that couldn't catch a ball thrown straight at them. You have so many tight ends that are pretty good at catching the ball, but can't stop the quarterback getting annihilated on a play when they have to come in as an extra blocker. So I like this pick. I especially think that Matt Ryan's probably in the twilight of his career. Build around him. He's good. He's got you to a Super Bowl in the past. He's won the Offensive Player of the Year award in the past as well. So, build around what's good at your team. So, yes, I like the pick. We roll on now to the Bengals with the 5th pick of the draft. They had a pretty high pick last year, and they're back near the bottom of the draft again. So, Scott, where do you see this going?
I think the Bengals are in a really interesting position in this draft, in that whatever way the top 4 picks go, I really can't see the Bengals missing out on their top pick. And I think the Bengals are 50-50. And I honestly, from what I've been reading, the Bengals are not going to decide what they want until the night. They are stuck between 2 picks. And those 2 picks are completely different things, but both involve Big Joey B. So obviously, Burrow last year, he had a pretty decent season until his leg snapped like a twig. And they basically have the option of reuniting Joey Burrow with his number one target from LSU, Jamar Chase. And now, bear in mind, okay, Jamar Chase took a year out of football and is still A, the highest rated wide receiver, but B is in like effectively the top 5 rated players to come out of college football this year. That tells you how good he's going to be. You know, I can't even like think of a comparison, but this guy is enormous. Like he's going to be up there with your Julio Joneses from year one. So you bring him in, and immediately that Bengals offense is a bit scary. But the problem is for me with that pick is that it leaves Burrow open to the exact same thing happening as what happened last year. He was one of the most targeted quarterbacks successfully last year. No wonder he got injured. So for me, you have to protect him. And the guy you protect him with is Oregon tackle Penei Sewell, who is looking like a year one, like all-pro tackle. He's going to be one of the best tackles in football effectively straight away. So for me, I have to go with protecting Joe Burrow at number 5 and pick Penei Sewell. But I can't stress enough, the Bengals are in a pretty sweet situation with this pick. They have a decision to make, be it Penei Sewell or Jamar Chase, but I would say there's a 99% chance that both players are still available when it gets to them.
Okay, let's lock Penei in for the 5th overall pick. I agree. I mean, like, I've watched the Bengals a lot in my time. I think that they scared me a lot with the pick of Joe. I really started to worry. I was like, well, we've had a fun run in this AFC North. I guess this is my 25-year twilight of my NFL fandom where we're terrible for the rest of my life. And I agree. Like, I have taken the piss out of the Bengals receivers for so long. I badmouth AJ Green at every possible opportunity, saying he's just an absolute waste. He's, wasted this long, beautiful career he had by achieving almost nothing. I could see Jamar Chase going there and making me feel silly for the rest of my NFL fandom. But I think you're right, and it's almost the exact same as what I said about Matt Ryan. Build around what's good, right? And a quarterback can't throw the ball if he's on his bum half the time. And that's what kept happening to the Bengals last year. Just couldn't keep the quarterback upright. So very happy to lock Penei Sewell, is that how you say it, in at number 5. Nels, it was a bit of a coin flip there for Scott, but are you joining him in that decision?
Yeah, I think that's the right decision. Sorry, my sister turned the light off. Yeah, I think that's the right decision. You have to invest in protecting your quarterback, and I don't know if you saw the Bengals uniform reveal, but he has a gnarly scar on his knee. It is not pretty, so you don't want that happening to your quarterback again. You need to protect him, so I'm not mad at that pick at all.
Nice one. So we're on to pick 6, and this is the Miami pick that was originally Philadelphia's involved in the number 3 overall pick. Essentially, Miami traded up to then trade back down. Somewhere it must make sense to someone. So, pick 6, Nels. Who are Miami taking?
Well, you see, now we've taken Penei Sewell off the board, and that is, of course, I'm not mad at the pick, but it is a big 50-50 decision for the Bengals. In Miami, they have an issue, is that they've got their quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa, and I think he's great. I really think he's the future of that franchise. He can run, he can pass, he can do it all, and he's a left-handed quarterback, which is something you don't often see a lot of in the NFL. I think he's got 3 options here, and the 3 options are Heisman winner Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, the leading receiver from Alabama, or, of course, the consensus best wide receiver in the draft this year, Jamar Chase. Now, out of the 3, of course, you might think Tua Tagovailoa was obviously a Bama boy, like Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, and you might want to reunite him with targets he's comfortable with and he knows. But I think, with questions around Devontae Smith's size, he weighed in at 170 pounds on his pro day, which is a little bit of an issue as a wide receiver, because you don't want your receivers to be too fragile And that is a question that has been wavered around Devontae Smith's head over the last 6 or so weeks. I think the smart pick here and the pick that the Dolphins should make is if he's still on the board, you should go with Jamar Chase from LSU because, as Scott said, he is the best wide receiver in this draft.
Scott, what's the most obvious difference between Chase and Smith?
Height. Simple as that.
Yeah.
One of them is built like Nels, and one of them is built like you.
That really sums it up quite nicely.
Listen, there is absolutely a necessary and a need for wide receivers that are built like you, Chris. You would make a fabulous wide receiver in the NFL.
Under 16s league.
But they've already got like Will Fuller. They've already got like these kind of guys that can run like flex routes and run like quick slants and stuff like that. What you need is a guy who, when you ping it right down, he's not going to miss. And I tell you what, if I was any secondary, I would be cacking my pants going up against Jamar Chase and Tua. So I think it's absolutely the right pick here. Yeah.
It's a shame to miss out on that beautiful reunion at Bengals, but we know it's a business. It's not always as simple as that. A lot of people had those receivers ending up at the Lions, who are the 7th overall pick. Scott, who do you see going there?
Boopity, 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 boopity. Do you know what that sound means? It's time for a trade.
Mispronunciation of anyone's name.
It's time for a trade.
I like it.
Okay. So here's where things get really interesting for me, right? Because I will be honest, I've got my own draft board up right now. I've got my own war room, and 5 out of the past 6 picks, I've had my number 1 pick go. Okay, so that's fine. Everything so far has went exactly the way that I'd prepared it to. This is where I think things get shaken up a little bit, because there's teams that are sitting outside of the top 5, quite a few, who are either completely needing a quarterback or are slyly thinking about getting a new quarterback. And we still have 2 great quarterbacks left in this draft. Actually, I would go as far to say as we have a guy on the board who is just going to be one of the biggest stars of the NFL for the next 10 years in Justin Fields. He's still on the board. We need to think about teams now that are thinking, Christ almighty, this is actually worth trading up for. And I am going to go for the most beautiful poetry here. I'm going to go for the most beautiful poetry. And I'm going to say that it's quite a small trade up, but it is a trade up that needs to happen, because you see the team at number 8, the Panthers, they have Darnold on a 1-year deal. They are going to think about a quarterback, okay? But do you know who else is thinking about a quarterback? The New England Patriots.
Oh.
Okay? So, with both of those things in mind, Nels is getting scared because the move that he doesn't want to happen out of every single move, like, I'm pretty sure Nels would give up all of Seattle's picks this year to have Justin Fields not go to the Patriots, because he would be in a world of hurt through that.
Absolutely. 100%.
So the good thing is I'm not going to do that, because I don't think that's going to happen, okay?
Thank God.
Nah. I'm not going to do that. Because there's one other team. There is one other team that I think secretly really want a quarterback here, and it all fits together too nicely to avoid. I'm going to have the Denver Broncos at number 9 trade up for the number 7 spot. So if you could go into the trade window and force through a trade, it doesn't really matter kind of what you tack on as long as you hit the B force button. But let's have the Denver Broncos please move up to number 7. And who's going to be running through those fields but the Broncos themselves? It's a horse's pun. We're going to go for Justin Fields to the Denver Broncos. And finally, Christ almighty, finally, we get a good quarterback. What for me, since I've been watching football, has been a team that just exemplifies good quarterbacks, the Denver Broncos. We finally get a good quarterback in there because Drew Lock hasn't worked. Let's go Justin Fields to the Denver Broncos at number 7 with a trade up.
Brilliant. I'm glad that I managed to figure out the technical side of
Yeah.
making those buttons happen. But yes, we just did a straight we just did a straight swap in our PFF draft. They've just voluntarily swapped positions with no other incentive involved whatsoever. Thank God I am not being graded on my draft. But yes, Denver Broncos on the clock at number 7, taking Justin Fields. This is huge. This officially means that you're off the Drew Lock hype train. But Nels, I think another issue that the Denver Broncos have is a lot like the New York teams is that Denver fans are a large people. They have a fan base pretty much one of the biggest in the entire NFL. Pretty much everything in the northwest of the United States, with the exception of Seattle, they all support the Denver Broncos. So you can't mess with this team too much. That's why they went in so hard on Peyton Manning, won a Super Bowl. But John Elway has been heavily criticized for some of the things that he has done to this team in the last 5 years. Most notably, they have achieved almost nothing. So, are you taking Fields to Denver? Nearly said Detroit.
Honestly, I'll take it because, like I said, I'm very scared about the New England Patriots trading up to trade for Justin Fields. Honestly, I had the Broncos taking Fields at 9 anyway. I saw that happening. What I thought was going to happen at this point was the Lions were going to take either Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle, or potentially Micah Parsons, because the two of their needs are wide receivers and linebackers, and then Trey Lance at 8 to the Panthers, and then Fields at 9. But it's kind of thrown a spanner in my works, but I'm not too mad about it. I'm just glad that Justin Fields is not a Patriot.
Well, Patriots haven't made any moves as of yet, but we're now at number 8 overall. The Lions and the Broncos have swapped positions, with the Panthers sitting nicely at number 8 between them. We're back to the even numbers. So, Nels, what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think Scott raised a very good point in the fact that the Panthers have Sam Darnold on a 1-year deal. So that's basically kind of signaling that we don't know if this is going to work out, but we're going to try it anyway. The Panthers had their best success in recent memory when they had a dual threat quarterback that was about 6'5" and built like a tank, and his name was Cam Newton. Now, obviously, Cam has gone to the New England Patriots, and honestly, I hope it works out for him. Their former NFL MVP, of course, but I do think the Panthers have one eye on the future, and the perfect replacement for someone that they could, kind of get in that Cam Newton like stature would be Trey Lance. He's 6'4", 226 pounds, and he's a sophomore coming out of North Dakota State University. Over the last 2 years at North Dakota State, he's been amazing for them. He's a dual threat quarterback. He can throw, he can run. The only issue with Trey Lance is he isn't the most accurate quarterback, and sometimes he does struggle throwing the ball. Like, he can throw it, but don't expect him to be hit like throwing bullets that are so accurate. I think that's a pick that makes sense here. They get to build him up for the future, and we may see, the return of Carolina to the playoffs with this pick.
Nels, do you know what? This is a show which highly favours Cam Newton. It doesn't even matter what he achieves in his career. We just love the man, so you can definitely come back. Now, Lance, I don't know much about him, as I've said from the very beginning, but I do know that according to PFF, he produced a 1.7% turnover-worthy play rate, which for context is better than Trevor Lawrence. Now, this excites me. I like that there could be this kind of underdog hero of the NFL next year, especially if it's the underdog heroes of the entire NFL, the Carolina Panthers. They always seem to achieve more than what is expected of them. So, yeah, I like this pick. Scott, you happy with Trey Lance Vance Dance coming to the Carolina Panthers? I've just completed Vice City, I'm sorry.
Incredible. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think that, for me, if I were on this pick and Trey Lance is the only quarterback left, listen, I just think if we get to this point on Thursday night, I think that the Patriots and I think potentially the Chicago Bears and maybe another couple of teams might be desperate enough to throw way too much Carolina's way for this pick. And I think Carolina might be in the position to go, you know what? Let's roll the dice with Darnold and not take a quarterback here. So I think that Trey Lance works for them. I think they'd be very chuffed with getting Trey Lance, but I think there might also be a trade here as well. But it's a good pick. It's a great pick. And yeah, I think we've basically just selected 5 quarterbacks in the first 10 picks. When was the last time that happened? You know, it's pretty mental. And I think, Chris, I told you this, that I first saw this happening a few months ago, and you called me a madman. But here we are.
I love it. I've forgotten most of the stuff that I've ever learned about the NFL draft, so this is so exciting for me. Most importantly, I just really like using this little selector thing. I feel like all the power is in my hands, but it's like I'm getting the praise for you guys doing all the work. But we're halfway down before we take a short break, so let's go on to pick number 9. They got bumped earlier from pick number 7, and thanks to my draft system, didn't really get rewarded for it. But let's just imagine for a moment that the Detroit Lions are somehow at pick number 9. So what's going to happen here?
Okay, so the Lions at number 9. Okay, one thing you have to know about the Lions is that they are fully, like, I think one phrase that's going to come up a lot in this episode and our next one is 3 words: win now mode. And there's a lot of teams that are in win now mode, and there's also a lot of teams that are not in win now mode who are happy to kind of take players and take picks. And you're not going to believe this, but it's time for another trade, because the Lions are a team who are absolutely gathering picks right now. They are happy to trade down. They are happy to trade out. They've got Jared Goff. He's not the future, but he'll do. He'll do for now. And this is a draft class which is quite good in terms of wide receivers. There's quite a lot of depth. Okay. And as I say, I don't think the Lions are in win now mode. But you know a team that are? The Arizona Cardinals. So I'm going to have the Arizona Cardinals trade up here. I'm going to have the Arizona Cardinals trade up to number 9. You can just do your wee force straight swap thing. The Lions just being very generous at the moment. But in reality, they will obviously have gathered a lot of picks from that first trade, and they'll gather a lot of picks from this trade as well. Now, the Arizona Cardinals, from what I've been reading, the word on the street is that the Arizona Cardinals really want to roll with Kyler Murray, and they want to make sure he wins this year, because he is playing in the hardest division in football, and he's also surrounded by already a great roster, but they've missed the playoffs now. They did miss the playoffs last year, didn't they? Despite the fact that they had a winning season, which is nuts. They were a good team, but maybe they're just lacking a little bit. And what a lot of teams are doing at the moment is they are somehow just building out the flashiest rosters and offense that they can. You look at the Buccaneers, they've got about 4 wide receiver ones on their squad. It's pretty insane, okay? So the Arizona Cardinals are going to copy that, and they're going to draft Jalen Waddle. They're going to draft Jalen Waddle, wide receiver, Alabama. This guy would, I was going to say, would have been a perfect like for Kenny Golladay. He is enormous. He will come in. He will do the job for them. And now, Kyler Murray's looking down the field. On the one side, he's got DeAndre Hopkins, and on the other, he's got Jalen Waddle. Scary.
Now, I like this, and who am I to even think about criticising anything? But just in terms of the trade, you said yourself that the Detroit Lions are a wide receiver needy team, especially a team that need to build around Goff. So why don't they take one of the 2 huge receivers from Alabama that are on the board?
They absolutely can, but I think there's a lot of teams, and we're going to see this on Thursday if it's right or not. There's a lot of teams that are just desperate right now. They are desperate to win. They are desperate to build the flashiest, biggest rosters they can. And I think the Lions know themselves they are way off the mark. So they need to just take stock right now. It would be the smart thing for them to do. If they get to 9, they will have the opportunity to draft Jalen Waddle, and maybe they should. But I also think they'll have a couple of calls. They'll have a couple of people ringing them up for that number 9 spot who are really desperate. And I think the Cardinals are desperate to make Kyler Murray work before they need to decide whether they want to pay him or not.
Absolutely. Right. Well, we roll on. That Devonta Smith is still on the board. He's, in my 1 hour of knowledge of the NFL draft, he's the biggest name on there by a mile. But we'll get to see what happens next. You'll have to wait a little bit longer. We head back to Nels, and at number 10, we have America's team. It's the Dallas Cowboys, armed with Dak Prescott, hopefully for a good while longer. And what do you think is going to happen here?
Well, pick number 10, a pick I'm very interested in, because of course we have Dak and the boys in the driver's seat right now. Now, Cowboys have a great offensive line. They always do. So I don't see them picking up a tackle here. I think if they're going to pick up a tackle, it's going to be during free agency, but I don't think they really need one. Like, their offensive line is fine. Kyle Pitts is already off the board, and I do think they want to fill that Jason Witten-sized hole in their team. But unfortunately, with Kyle Pitts off the board, there's no other tight end worth taking in the first round right now. So, and you look at their offense, they've just paid Dak Prescott. They've got a great running back in Ezekiel Elliott, but he needs to fix up because guy was looking like an uncle last year. He did not look good. He was, if dare I say it, and I really can't talk, he was kind of overweight. He really needs to sort it out, But if Zeke can get back to his best, they're sorted on offense, between him, Amari Cooper, and CeeDee Lamb, like, they're going to be fine on offense. So I don't see them picking up Devontae Smith as, the Heisman winner at this point. And I don't think he fits in the Cowboys scheme anyway right now. So who I see the Dallas Cowboys picking up at number 10, they need to address their defensive issues. Now, there's 2 ways they could go. They could go edge or they could go corner. And I think, because if you remember last year, they were going back and forth in shootouts with teams like, Seattle, Atlanta. They were just like trading touchdowns all over the place. So they got the firepower on offense, but they need to sort out their defense. And I think that begins and starts with the consensus best cornerback in the draft this year, Patrick Surtain II. He's a great corner, played at Bama for 3 years, I believe. Yeah, he's a junior. He got 2 defensive touchdowns last year, 4 in total over the 3 years at Bama. His cover, he got targeted 48 times and only allowed 21 receptions in the last year. Fantastic pick. I definitely think that's where the Dallas Cowboys go. So I'm going to lock in Patrick Surtain II to the Dallas Cowboys.
I love this pick, and do you know what? As good as it always is in the NFL to watch those games that you spoke about, those college games where it's like 54 or 48, like, there's a problem there. Yes, the team can score, as you said, but they can't back it up on the other side of the field, and I feel like that's the most important thing. You're never going to win a Super Bowl just by attempting to outscore the team you're playing against. You'll eventually just hit a defense that doesn't allow you to do that, a la Seattle and Denver in the Super Bowl, where Seattle just destroyed the Broncos, and it was, hilarious to watch. But Surtain goes to pick number 10 for the Cowboys. That is Surtain. I'm sorry. Scott, what's happening at pick 11 for the Giants?
Yeah, I also just want to say, well up the defense. Finally, we got a defensive pick in there, just into the top 10. Normally in the NFL draft, it's all defense, and you go, ooh, finally a quarterback or a wide receiver. But Christ Almighty, this year is just offense heavy. So yeah. I think Surtain is absolutely the right pick there. Now, for me, at 11, we land on the Giants, and I think the Giants will probably take a bit of a risk here. So they will be looking at the board, and the most important thing for them is protecting and helping Danny Dimes. This really needs to be Daniel Jones's breakout year, and we saw last year that the division that they're in sucks ass. It is the suckiest, assiest division in football, really. and the Cowboys made it into the playoffs with a freaking broken leg. They Greg Jennings all their way to the playoffs somehow. That's just how bad the Giants were. Really, is that they had their starting quarterback the whole year. The other three teams in that division didn't, and they didn't get to the playoffs. They sucked. And you can put a lot of that down to Saquon Barkley getting injured, but this is a kid who's had 2 season-ending injuries out of the 3 seasons he's been in the NFL. It's a bit of a worry. So you really, really need to help. Yeah, you need to help Danny Dimes a bit. They could go wide receiver here. They could throw in Devontae. They've obviously brought in Kenny Golladay. That'll help a lot because I do think that they were missing something like that. They've still got their man at tight end, Evan Engram, who is, in my opinion, a stud tight end. He's one of the best in the NFL. They could use more help on wide receiver. Is Devontae Smith the guy? I'm not so sure. What I think they'll do instead is draft a tackle for Danny Dimes. And I think that the best player left in this draft, however, he's a little bit of a risk, is Rashawn Slater. So Rashawn Slater can play anywhere across that line. He is a complete chameleon. The guy is absolutely massive as well. He is basically 6'4". But one of the problems with him, and the reason that he goes after Penei Sewell, is that he's got a little bit of a sort of smaller frame for a guy that's 6'4". And there was a few players that came off the board last year, like Tristan Wirfs, who were also like that, but have had a really, really good year. So I think that it is a bit of a risk for the Giants here. And you know what? They're probably not in the position to take a risk. But to have Rashawn Slater and his upside left on the board here is probably too good to pass. And the gulf in quality between Rashawn Slater and the next best tackle, which could be Darisaw. I'm also thinking about Elijah Vera Tucker at this point. I just think that they have to here go for Rashawn Slater. So my pick for the Giants here would be Rashawn Slater.
I like it. Rashawn Slater, as you mentioned briefly there, opted out in 2020, which I don't think actually in the year that's gone is in any way a hindrance. I might even respect players more for opting out of, putting themselves in the limelight and the hassle of playing in a season like the one that's just gone. But we'll lock in Rashawn. I'm all for this mindset of we have to defend our quarterback, especially as you said, so much about the Giants just seems to center around oh, well, it's fine. Barkley will win, is it? And they don't think anything further than that. And I mentioned at the top of the show as well, New York just doesn't have it easy on their NFL teams. And, maybe that's rightfully so. And Rashawn Slater, I'm sure you'll agree, will not be a flashy pick for the Giants, but it's one that I think would be necessary. Defend your quarterback at all costs, especially in a division where all of them got injured. There's a good reason for that. It's because all of the other defensive players in that division know how to destroy quarterbacks. That is their job. But let's lock that in. Slater goes to the Giants at pick 11. He was graded 11th best in the draft on PFF. So, by them, that would be their ideal pick. And a lot of people also here, I'm seeing that a lot of fans want Rashawn to go to the Giants as well. So we'll roll on to a potentially quarterback needy team in the Eagles at pick number 12. They got there via the 49ers and Giants from earlier. Oof, the Eagles have had some 12 months, Nels, but what the hell is going to happen here?
Well, I think I might get a lot of stick for this, but I don't think the Eagles are a very good run franchise, and that's even with them offloading trash bag Wentz. As you know, I'm famously not a fan of Carson Wentz. I don't think he's a great quarterback. But, they have Jalen Hurts in the driving seat at the moment. I don't think they're going to move on from Jalen Hurts just yet. I think they're going to give him every opportunity in the world. However, knowing the Eagles, I don't think that they will supply him with a weapon. So I don't see them picking up a quarterback or a wide receiver. So I think there's two potential picks right here for the Eagles. The first one being the next best corner, J.C. Horn from South Carolina, or Micah Parsons from Penn State. Now, Micah Parsons was said to have slid outside the top 10 because of attitude problems. And whilst I can't really comment on that, I do think he is the potential pick here. He's an athletic linebacker that you can build your core around. He can a pass rush, he can drop back into coverage, he can do anything you need him to do. So for this one right now, I think that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to pick Micah Parsons at number 12.
I like it. Let's lock that in. Do you know what? There's been a lot of turmoil in the offensive side of the ball for the Eagles, and I think a really great way to distract the fans away from that would be to strengthen the other side of the ball. It almost doesn't matter how good or bad your offense is if you can back up with a really good defense. So why not back up with a really great linebacker? I like the pick. Penn State as well. You wouldn't have to move very far, right? Are we having that? Hopefully. Right, we'll roll on now to the unluckiest pick of the first round. The Chargers. That was an interesting season they just had as well. What are they going to do at pick 13?
So the Chargers, yeah, it's going to be a really, really interesting one. There's a few things they can do, and it's really funny because I spoke earlier about the Bengals having both of their top picks available. For me here, the Chargers also have two picks available, which is just going to be a hell of a headache to pick between. So I was speaking about the fact that Burrow was one of the most hit quarterbacks of last year. I said one of the most because the most hit quarterback was our boy at the Chargers. And to get hit the most and to win the offensive rookie of the year is quite some achievement from our very own little herbivore, Justin Herbs. But he's obviously going to be in the NFL for the next decade, based on what we saw last year. So you need to protect him. You do. You absolutely need to protect him a bit more. And there's a few players on the board who they could look at. So one of the names that I've seen quite a lot is Christian Darrisaw. I've seen his name so much in mock drafts. I'm now picturing a bit of a kind of blue and yellow Buzz jersey on him every time I read his name. However, they could also go for Elijah Vera Tucker again, who I know I've already mentioned, but really, really good-looking tackle in Elijah Vera Tucker too. My problem with all of this is I just don't think they're going to pick a tackle. I think there is a guy on the board right now who is the perfect pick for the Chargers. He does fill a very important need, which is cornerback. Nels has already mentioned him. But honestly, over the past month or so, even though Patrick Surtain II is the number one corner, I wouldn't be surprised if you see J.C. Horn go over Patrick Surtain. And the reason I say that is this guy, if you're talking about athleticism, he's not far behind Kyle Pitts in terms of this class. This guy is enormous. He did the 40-meter dash in 4.4. He's got something mental like a 41.5 vertical leap or something stupid like that. Like, this guy is a complete monster. He's the kind of guy that, like, you throw back there, and whoever the attacking team are, they just don't target that side because it's too scary. And if I'm right in saying, the Chargers have already got an incredible corner on the other side as well. So that means that the Chargers become incredibly difficult to play against. It does mean that they are in the need for a tackle, but I just can't see them passing on J.C. Horn at 13, so I'm going to pick him.
The interesting thing is some might say that that's a little bit of a reach at 13. J.C. Horn graded all the way down at 18th, but I think we all know that it's not about where you're ranked overall, it's where you're ranked in the needs of the team. And obviously the Chargers, good God, do they need players in that position? They need to stop hemorrhaging points. So I'd like to see JC Horn headed to the Chargers. Right, we've got a couple more left before we take a short break. And we're now rolling on to the Minnesota Vikings at pick number 14. They have some needs. But where are they going to go?
Absolutely, you're right. They do have some needs. Can I just say though, on that 13th pick, I think that's actually a great pick. I don't think there is like a better corner on the board at that point other than JC Horn, and I really do think that the Chargers need to address their defense. Speaking of addressing their defense, it is definitely something that the Vikings need to do as well. They've got offensive weapons, they've got wide receivers, and Justin Jefferson. They've got the tight end that they need. They've got the running back that they need, and Dalvin Cook. Kirk Cousins is okay at quarterback. He can do the job. He can do the job. He can just about get them over the line. So I think here with number 14, the Vikings start addressing their defense, and the pick that I think that they should do it with, if they have any sense, is Kwity Paye. Now, Kwity Paye is an edge rusher coming out of the Michigan Wolverines. He slimmed down a little bit for his pro day to show that he meant business, that he can come off the edge quickly. He'll be the quick, fast, powerful edge rusher that they need. 6'4", 261 pounds, down from 272. And I think one of his biggest strengths is his twitch. He's very quick off the line. So for pick number 14, I'm looking in Kwity Paye to the Minnesota Vikings.
I like it. You know what? Vikings are a team who, as you say, it's like they spent so much money on Kirk Cousins that they should be so much more successful than they have been. Like, they always come out in the playoffs and they'll maybe get an upset win. I think the Saints one stands out massively for me. But like for what they've tried to achieve and how much they've spent, like, it should be so much better. So let's hope Kwity helps that team to the improvements that they need to get. Okay, this is a big one. Number 15, the New England Patriots. The champions of the NFL for the last 20 years, now heading in a very different direction under Cam Newton, Bill Belichick. Not a great season last year, but what the hell are they going to do next year?
Yeah, first of all, can I just say that I'm so happy that the final pick of this episode is going to be me not screwing Nels once, but twice, because he's not even thought about the Lions at 16 yet, which is great. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does there. But yeah, the Patriots. This one for me is really easy. I actually potentially can only see the Patriots drafting one or two players. One of them being Mac Jones if he lands to them or they trade up for him because he feels like the right kind of pick there. But the other one being a wide receiver. And they've got no chance of landing Jalen Waddle or Jamar Chase. No, the wide receiver that I've seen fall to the Patriots in a few drafts, and the one that seems to make a lot of sense is absolutely Devontae Smith. And here he is, still on the board, ready to be picked up by the Patriots. He's a Heisman winner. Bill Belichick will like that. I think that they can't fix Cam Newton this season because they've already gone for free agency and they didn't touch it. And they also, I've had a look at this draft. They've not been successful in drafting up for him. When we get to Thursday, maybe they will be successful in drafting up for a quarterback, but we're having them be unsuccessful drafting for a quarterback in this draft. I think that the pick for them is absolutely Devontae Smith.
Finally, after being ranked 7th overall, Devontae Smith goes off our board to the Patriots at 15. Scott, I have to ask you, you know what I'm going to ask? Patriots drafting wide receivers. It's just not a thing that turns out very successfully very often. How did they get around this?
I think he's going to be good. And the reason why he's going to be good is because he's already so much better than any of the wide receivers they've got at the Patriots. This guy, he won the Heisman. He was on the best team in college football last year that I've already said effectively played better than some of the mincier teams in the NFL. So I think he is going to be successful, but obviously a great deal of that will come down to what the Patriots do at quarterback. Yeah, we're fans of Cam Newton on this show, but we also know he's limited. So will they be a winning team this year? Maybe not. But we will see kind of what they do for the future. Maybe a return for Jimmy Garoppolo's on the cards. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then if you pair Jimmy Garoppolo up with Devontae Smith, I'd quite like to see that. So yeah, I think he will be successful. I think it will depend what they want from him. I just think that Patriots fans will need to bear in mind that he's not going to be a Julio Jones. He's not going to be a DK Metcalf. He's not that kind of receiver. But I think he can be a star in this league for sure, like an Antonio Brown maybe.
Don't speak that guy's name in my presence. No, I'm kidding. Okay, this leaves us quite nicely in the last pick of the first half of the first round. The Detroit Lions have somehow fallen to pick number 16, stumbling through picks, grabbing them on their way down. But Scott has, he's backed up how they have ended up there. They have many a need, but with, a large portion of great players still on the board. Who do you, Nels, have Detroit Lions taking?
Trade down, Nels. Do it. Trade down again.
Well, you know something. A few years I was watching the NFL Network and I was watching the draft, and it was going through team needs. And on, I can't remember which team. I think it might have been the Browns or the Jets. But it said team needs, and it just said everything. So I think that is somewhat the case here with the Lions. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't have them trading down twice. And I think, trading down a third time wouldn't make much sense. So at this, as much as they want to collect picks and build for the future, I think at this point they absolutely do have to address at least one of their needs, with new quarterback Jared Goff coming in. So the moves that they have, they need everything across the D line. They need every defensive position basically. So I think there's two potential picks that they could go with here. Christian Barmore from Alabama. He's a big interior defensive lineman. You can play him at nose tackle or defensive tackle. He's a good run stopper. He played most of his snaps in the B gap, so that means he's essentially like more of a defensive tackle than a nose tackle, but he has played a few in the A gap. I also think that a potential pick is the big safety from TCU, Trevon Moehrig, 6'2", 202 pounds. It's pretty big for a safety. He's really good at, finding the ball, whether that be, rushing or, intercepting. He's really, really good at finding the ball. So I think, I can't trust really the Lions to make a good pick here, but I guess at this point they either take one of those two guys, and I'm gonna go with what I believe their safer option is, and that's to partner up Jeff Okudah with another DB to build their own version of the Legion of Boom, and I'm gonna lock in Trevon Moehrig to the Detroit Lions at pick 16.
I like it, and do you know why, right? Because I've watched NFL for coming up 16 years now, and Detroit Lions have achieved very little in that time. Like I think I said this to Scott on a previous episode. There's never been a time where I've been like, oh yeah, Detroit Lions are really gonna go in and smash this game. Like, never confidently picked them to win any game in their entire existence in my life. And I think they've won like a handful of wild card berths. They've not won the division in about 2 millennia. So anything that they can do to help them move in a better direction, I really want to see happen. I think that the Goff move's interesting.
The Detroit Lions, sorry, I just really want to say this. The Detroit Lions were the first team to ever go 0-16 in the NFL.
Of course they were.
2008.
I remember when the New England Patriots were going for the most consecutive wins record, and to get it, they had to beat the Detroit Lions, who were on their own 16 season. And I was just like, I wonder, guys, could you do this? And yes, they did not. The Patriots absolutely trounced them. So yeah, do you know what? I said this a bit about a couple of teams earlier on. Just anything they can do to even just improve the rep of the Lions would be so good for them. Even just like the trades they've already made will give the team a little bit of hope. Just give the fans some hope heading into this season. That is exactly what you need to do. But that leaves us with the Raiders on the clock. And before we get into those, we're going to wrap up for this show. We've done the first 16 picks, and I'll take you through them again really quickly. I'll butcher these names. Lawrence is going to go to the Jags at number 1. Wilson to the Jets at 2. Jones to the Niners at 3. And then our first non-quarterback off the board, Kyle Pitts, goes to the Falcons at 4. Penei Sewell goes to the Bengals at 5. Jamar Chase, big wide receiver, goes to the Dolphins via the Eagles at 6. Justin Fields, our other quarterback, goes to the Broncos. Trey Lance goes to the Panthers. Jalen Waddle, wide receiver, goes to the Cardinals. Patrick Surtain II goes to the Dallas Cowboys. Rashwan Slater goes to the Giants. Micah Parsons to the Eagles. JC Horn to the Chargers. Kwity Paye to the Vikings. And our last couple, Devonta Smith, finally off the board at the Patriots at 15. And via many picks, the Lions get Trevon Moehrig at pick 16. Guys, thank you so much for your hard work on those first 16 picks, but we've got 16 left. We've already done the biggest 16 picks. Now let's go back and do the biggest 16 teams. Those who actually performed quite well at the end of last year and are in the latter stages of the draft. Who's going to get a steal? Because it's always difficult at the end of that first round to pick up some big picks. Scott, thank you for everything. I liked your 8 picks so far. I'm looking forward to what's coming next.
Thank you, yeah. And thanks, Nels, for joining us as well.
Thanks for having me, boys. It's been a real pleasure.
Stay right there, because we will be back very soon in the next episode where we're going to do picks 17 to 32.